Hi everyone, thanks for tuning into my channel. I'm Kidest. In this video, we're going to look at how to change a recurring negative pattern. So a recurring negative pattern is a pattern that you see yourself running in your experience again and again. Whether the situation or relationship changes, whether the people in your life are different, or the circumstances in your life are different, you notice that you're running the same kind of psychological and emotional pattern and behavioral pattern. So a negative pattern is one that, has you behaving in ways, has you thinking in ways, has you feeling in ways that again and again don't feel good to you. It's unpleasant, it's unresourceful, it's unproductive, and you notice that you're not your typical empowered self when you are running that negative pattern. You're not your typical, knowledgeable, grounded, effective, productive self. So the first step to changing this kind of cyclical negative pattern is to first become aware that it's there. You want to step back and recognize that, yes, you are in fact running some unconscious program, some unconscious processes going on that has you responding to your reality the way that you're responding in that negative pattern. So the first step is awareness. Awareness of what the pattern is, when it shows up, and how it manifests. So how does it manifest psychologically? How does it manifest emotionally? And how does it manifest behaviorally? So you bring this lens of objective awareness into the negative pattern that you have come to recognize as something that needs to change. So putting that pattern in front of yourself objectively takes active engagement on your part. It takes active objective engagement on your part. So whether you write it out or you record yourself describing what happens for you both internally and behaviorally, you gain that objective awareness. You create that space between yourself and this program so that more awareness, more conscious attention can come into this part of the unconscious, this part of the mindset that you're running that you don't have conscious control over yet. So from that sort of structured awareness, structured exploration, you'll understand the sort of sequence that this unconscious program unfolds through. So every program that you run has, an associated set of mental images that you make, an associated set of emotions that you run, an associated set of behaviors that you also engage in. And it's the same kind of loop of unproductive thought processes, unproductive emotions, and unproductive decision making that manifests as this negative pattern. So when you become aware of it, when you just sort of map it out for yourself, okay, when a situation like this happens, what do I start to think? What thoughts do I start to generate and cycle and perpetuate internally? What's my subjective narrative as it relates to this way of responding or reacting to some external environment cue or some relational cue? What is it that I do? What is it that I say to myself? What do I say about the other circumstance, the other person, the situation? What's the story that I create? And what is that story emotionally based in? So you ask yourself questions that prompt you to observe, explore, and examine the internal processes that you've habitually run as this cyclical negative pattern. As you sort of bring to surface what that internal orientation that you move into is, you'll bring more consciousness into that unconscious process. You'll bring more awareness and the spaciousness awareness into that unconscious process. And you'll begin to sort of unravel the entangled emotions and sort of memories that are driving that negative pattern to keep cycling in your life, in your perspective, in your nervous system, in your experience. So that practice of first making the unconscious process conscious is something that you want to actively do. You want to sit down with a journal or with your video recorder or whatever medium is ideal for you, and really just break it down for yourself. What are the thoughts about? What are the emotions about? What emotions typically run, when I'm in this unconscious pattern? What emotions are fueling and driving it? Is it blame? Is it anger? Is it frustration? Is it annoyance? And you name the emotions so that you really make evident to yourself the components of this negative pattern. And this awareness really empowers you in that you start to recognize that you are not your unconscious program. You are not this unconscious process, that you are not this negative pattern. There's actually a gap between the consciousness that you are and this practiced, memorized, habituated unconscious process that you've been running up until now. So you start to gain more energy. You start to take back the energy that this negative pattern eats up. You start to take it back into your conscious awareness. And as you do, this negative pattern starts to lessen, both in its occurrence and intensity in your life. So just that act of bringing more consciousness into what this pattern is and breaking it down for yourself will start to undo the unconscious movement of energy, the unconscious flowing of your life force into this old negative pattern. Because the moment you start to recognize that a response pattern, a reaction is a reaction, you give yourself the option to choose something different. When it's unconscious, you don't have much of a choice in the matter. It just, you get triggered, the sequence of thought processes and emotions get kicked off, and you're in that loop, in that space. But once you've done the work of bringing more consciousness into it, that automatic launching of this negative pattern gets interrupted, because you've identified what it is, you've identified its structure, you've identified how it feels, you've identified what you feel like when you're in that negative loop. You've done a lot of the deconstruction work of the pattern. So that first step of really bringing as much consciousness as you can into that negative pattern does a lot to help you break free from it. So the second step is to define what the new response pattern you want to be having is. What is the new positive, more resourceful pattern you want to be cycling as a response strategy to, whatever situations or relational dynamics evoke that old negative response in you before? So you define the new thought process, you define the new emotions, you define the new behaviors and decision making. You ask yourself, okay, so if I were to respond to the situation from a place of more empowerment, from a place of knowing I'm capable, from a place of knowing I'm empowered, from a place of knowing that I'm, supported, and all of these sort of resourceful psychological and emotional positions. If I were to respond to this from there, what would I be thinking? What would my subjective narrative be if it was more positive? What would I be feeling? Would I be feeling calm? Would I be feeling, capable and confident? What would be the emotional component of the desired response? And what decisions would I be making? What actions would I be taking? So you give yourself a conscious map of what the new desired response would look and feel like. And what this does is it gives your nervous system, it gives your neurology, it gives your physiology a new response goal and new outcome. So on the one hand, you started deconstructing the old negative pattern, and on the other hand, you started defining a new flow of energy, a new flow of mind and emotion for your mind and body. You started to tell your mind and body, okay, well, when a situation like this happens, although I used to respond like this before, although I used to be reactive and have these kinds of thoughts and emotions before, this is how I want to respond moving forward. I know that moving into this new mindset, this new emotional set point, this new way of responding is more beneficial to me. It's more resourceful, it's more productive, and it's more constructive. It will help me move forward rather than keeping me trapped in an uncomfortable state of mind and body. So it gives your neurology and your physiology a new goal to achieve. And giving yourself that kind of direction will help you map a new response consciously, deliberately, and intentionally that will flow your life force, that will flow your life energy in more constructive and productive ways. So when it comes to deliberate creation, this part of deliberately defining how you want to show up psychologically and physiologically and emotionally is a game changer. Deliberately calibrating yourself toward new resourceful responses, better ways of interpreting the data of your reality and creating meaning, doing that in ways that empower you, and recognizing that you do actually have conscious power to do that. You have conscious power to regulate your neurology. You have conscious power to regulate your physiology. Knowing all of that really allows you to recognize just how powerful you are in your ability to author yourself, just how powerful you are in your ability to transform yourself in every way. So first you become aware of the components of the negative pattern. You deconstruct it, you define, the contents of it. Then you define the new behavior, the new response, the new desired mindset and emotionality that you want to inhabit. From there, it's a matter of putting into practice that newly defined behavior, bringing your ability to deliberately and intentionally self-regulate yourself along the lines of those new psychological and emotional and behavioral goals that you've created for this new response strategy that you've created, and practicing it until you've crystallized in your neurology that new response pathway. And it takes time, but not a lot. If an unconscious pattern that you've been running for 30 years is something you can undo within a matter of a month or two. So you are not stuck with the negative patterns you see yourself experiencing. You are not stuck with any self-limiting story. You are not stuck to keep running unproductive cyclical programs again and again. You have this power through your conscious awareness, through your consciousness and your ability to engage with your internal environment. You have this power to completely transform how you flow energy through your mind, through your body, through your physiology, and through your emotional body. So start by, recognizing, engaging your self-awareness and going, oh, wait, this feels like an unproductive pattern. What is this? Get curious about it. And from there, go through those steps of bringing more consciousness into it, deconstructing it, defining the new behaviors and rehearsing those new behaviors. And you'll wow yourself at just what a magnificent multidimensional system you have that is so responsive to your conscious, intentional movements.